Willie D Live.
As you can see, we're live from the Barbershop in Southwest Houston. And we got a special guest in the city. He's almost not even like a guest. This is our brother, the one and only Killer Mike. Killer Mike,
hey,
thanks for stopping by to see us today, brother.
Honored to be here, brother.
Man, can we do something live, like give him a
clap
it up?
Hey.
You know, we from the South. We believe in clapping it up.
Happy to be here.
Yes, sir. Brother, again, thanks for being here. Let's just hop right into it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Michael.
Yeah.
Michael. I remember when Muhammad Ali changed his name.
Yeah.
And, you know, people were trying to berate him, saying, your mama named you Cassius.
I'm going to call you Cassius.
Right. Your mother named you Michael. Am I correct?
Yeah, my mother named me Michael Render. Yeah, Michael Santiago Render.
Yes, sir.
I told her, she thought I was going to look Puerto Rican like my dad. I ended up just looking black like her. God bless my soul, man. My father, light-skinned with the curly hair, so I told her that when she came on the exotic middle name. But she named me his first name. My father was named for the angel Michael, and I was named for him and my daughter, and I have a son named Michael, all named for me.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you went from Michael, and the name that the culture gave you is Killer Mike.
Yeah, Killer Mike.
And so now the new album, which everybody's ranting and raving about, you go back to Michael. You go from Michael to Killer Mike, back to Michael.
Yep. Yeah.
What was the significance of naming your album Michael?
I don't know. Well, it's my 20th year in rap, but people had never met Michael. They met versions of Michael that they liked. So, you know, some people like Killer Mike the rapper. Some people like Michael Render, who they saw, you know, as an activist. Some people like Mike the businessman. But I had never on record given people fully who I was. You know, you sign a major deal, you know, you have to partner with a major company, and they get to make some decisions you don't have much say on. So, you know, singles got picked for me. I was signed to Outkast, so people viewed me in proxy to them. Grand Hustle was a recorded home. T.I. was like my brother and friend. You know, so I had always been attached to something that was bigger, but people just never got to meet me. So I think it's important that people meet you, you know. So I said, before, you know, I got sick with COVID. Before they even gave it a name, I was flat on my face for like 14 days. Right after, I'm one half of a very successful rap group called Run the Jewels. I'd argue we the best rap group going today. And I could have just, you know, for the last decade, we've been doing great. You know, we've been touring the world, been around the world 4 times, 123 shows a year. We do very well. But I was like, man, if I died today, I'd only be known as Killer Mike. You know, one half, and Killer Mike is a character, you know, of an MC that a 9-year-old boy imagined. You know, I wanted to be the most badass, swaggering MC. It was, you know, I wanted to be like Cube. I wanted to be like Face. You know, I wanted to be like Ice-T. But at my core, I'm just this little boy. I'm Denise's son. And I wanted everybody to have an opportunity to meet a black boy from a black enclave in Atlanta who grew up empowered. I didn't have to search for black empowerment. I already grew up in it and knew it and thrived in it. So I just wanted people to understand me. As I interviewed and stuff, I realized how many people were misunderstanding me and the things I was saying. So I was just like, let me put down a personal testimonial with my trials and triumphs, you know, my lows in the valley and my peaks on the mountain.
Almost like an autobiography.
Yeah, with the beginning of one, because it's going to be 3 series. It's going to be 2 more Michaels.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but I wanted to introduce people first to this who I am and why I am. You know?
Man, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So I don't know what you've been hearing, but what I've been hearing is that this is Killer Mike's best work to date.
Yeah, and I've had some great work. 11 years ago, I gave him a classic album with rap music. You know what I mean? If you go in the Trap Music Museum, Tips has my first album, Monster Up, is the first attempt at a conscious trap album. So I've been making great work, but this is the absolute. This is the whale I've been chasing for 20 years. Like, you've read Moby Dick, you know, I was intent on getting this reaction out of people.
But I'm interested, where did it come from? Because, you know, they say rap is a quote-unquote young man's game.
Yeah, that's what they say.
That's what they say, right?
Yeah.
But they say the same thing about basketball. They say the same thing about football. But then you got Tom Brady. He winning championships at the age of 40 or whatever, right? But the point that I'm making is, like, how do you produce your your best work on what some people would consider the back end of your career? Where does that come from?
You can't think about what some people think. I don't even know some people. You know, I know my people. My people believe in me.
Yeah.
You know, I remember watching Muhammad Ali walk into a fight. I think with who's it? It was my boy Foreman, and he said, "Man, what y'all looking sad for? Y'all already look like I done lost the fight, like I'm dead." And that's, you know, my people, man. They give it to me. That was somebody on my team that questioned if I could do it, and my age, and we went ahead and fired him. He got on out of there.
Yeah, it was time for him to go.
Everybody else seemed to be believers after that. So you know, God
Good
bless
riddance.
him and whatever he doing, but he gone. But you know, I got a young scrappy manager, man. We've been at this thing about, you know, our daughters are 16, so we've been at this thing about 16 years together. You know, Will Bronson from Active Management, and he's just a believer. It's amazing what you can do with somebody when you believe in yourself, but when you got a crew that believe in you, you can't fail them. You're gonna work harder, you're gonna push your yard, try to get an extra inch. You know what I mean? So I just have a lot of people encouraging. So I couldn't let them down, couldn't let myself down, and it's just a moment in time for me, for a growth of the what to expect out of black men as rappers. You know what I mean? I knew that I had something to offer. The same 16-year-old boy that was trapping, that was trapping, and at the same time getting knowledge of self, is the same 25-year-old young man that got offered a record deal, and it's the same 35, 45-year-old person. But I've grown, I've matured, I've learned things. So I just wanted to put it down. I knew it was an audience for it. You know, and I suspected, and the suspicion proved true.
Yeah, the suspicion definitely proved true. Man, let's give him a round of applause for Michael for the album. I hate to turn this into a church service or a mosque meeting.
That's what the album intended to do.
That's exactly what it is, brother. Next question. We're celebrating 50 years of hip hop.
Yeah, we are.
Right. But 30 years up from the Public Enemy era.
Yeah.
30 years up from the struggle against apartheid in South Africa.
Yeah.
Hip hop played a role in that.
Yeah.
Hip hop is too young to have say that we directly played a role in the civil rights movement. Yeah. But then there was the George Floyd movement. My question to you, what do you think about the state of activism in hip hop right now?
I'm always happy. With rappers as activists has always been quirky or tricky. But rappers using their platform to aid activists always has been and always will be. You can in terms of the rappers that come out of the places in the South that I know and love, whether it be Atlanta or Memphis or Jacksonville, NOLA, you know, he's talking about Houston stuff, Dallas. People have always said things that were socially conscious. You know, in the midst of bouncing and shaking and gyrating. Right. We'll give you something. So it's always been there to always be there. What I'm happier to see now these days is people who actively know the activists. Now rappers will tell you now, you know, you gotta listen to Tez and Figaro. You gotta check out what Charlemagne is saying on this. You gotta listen to the minister. Like I remember when the minister came down and called Minister Louis Farrakhan, for people who don't know what I'm talking about. He called all those rappers in and there was some unrest going on around the George Floyd thing. He calls the Tree Sound Studios in Atlanta, and everybody showed up. You know, me, Tip, 2 Chainz, but I think Boosie might have, Lil Duval was comedian with that. But he warned us against inciting violence because he's seen it before, the 60s and 70s. He said, you know, you can incite violence, it'll give you momentary satisfaction. He said, but you guys are safeguarded from it. What you gonna do when they block off a neighborhood for 2 weeks? And they cut off the water, and they don't allow food in and out, and then your women and children starving. He made everybody in that room think that we had never thought before. You know, everybody talks about the revolution. They think about taking up arms and overtaking the government. That didn't work too well for white folks on January 6th. You know? And so when you look at the most revolutionary thing you could do, really only 2 people who've done it has been, say, a Marcus Garvey and Elijah Muhammad, in that raise your own economic workforce, create your own farms, grow your own food, teach your own children. That's the real revolution. So he helped us understand that in that day. And after that day, you saw brothers from Thug put it in his music. Future had put it in his music. 2 Chainz went and visited him. So for me, man, it's just about we accept guidance and we accepted wisdom, and it's in the music. You're not gonna hear it most of the time, the adults, because you don't want to hear it. But kids hear it. They move. When I did the Black Banking movement, God bless the dead, Young Dolph, Thug, I remember Rah Tip was some of the first people that showed up. You know, Thug hadn't even had a bank account. I think he was still keeping his money in the floorboard.
That was like 2016.
Yeah, that brother showed up and brought a lot of brothers with him. So, you know, it's active. If you want to find the good and see the good is there. I remember the song Run that's on my album. People say, well, I don't know why Mike had Thug on it. He's not saying that. But no, you're not listening. You know, he said, I'm thinking the same, but I ain't banking the same. He talked about buying his girl some jewelry. So he's still gonna buy his girl the jewelry, the Birkin bag, but now he's doing it out of a black bank. He's investing with a black bank. But if you're not listening, if you don't want to see it, you're not gonna see it. He said, I'm gonna take the children, put them on a yacht. You know, we gonna escape on a yacht. And I just envisioned on that part where he was putting all us back and reversing the transatlantic trade, putting children back, taking them back to Africa. So my thing is, if your imagination or your logic won't let you see it, you're not gonna see it, but it's there.
Yeah.
The activism is still there in the
That's
music.
real.
You know?
That's real.
And the business ownership, I gotta say, you know, hip hop has always been defined as, you know, you DJ, you b-boy, what they call breakdance and graffiti and writing and then MCing. But I would add business as a fifth pillar. What you see now is every rapper represents a certain amount of jobs and commerce and
that's
business.
A big part of the activism.
That's a huge
That's economic activism.
Yeah, absolutely. Without that, you don't have anything.
No,
if
you don't. No,
if
you
you
don't.
look at right now African nations that are making deals with Russia, it's based on the economy, and they say, well, the rest of the Western world has never treated us fairly from an economic standpoint. So right now, the U.S. dollar, I don't think it's going to break totally, but it definitely is under fire because finally people are saying, well, I'm tired of it. And you used to look at Russia forgiving $56 billion in debt. When France going to forgive the false debt that Haiti has, that it doesn't really owe? You understand what I'm saying? And if hip-hop doesn't rap about it or don't talk about it, the young people don't know. So I just say, but I would be more encouraging. I would encourage 40 and 50-year-olds to be less discouraging because that's what they did to us.
Come on.
They did that to us with Public Enemy. They did that to us with The Coup. They did that to us with Good and Mob. They discouraged every step of the way, but yet we made it. We did it. So I think we should become more encouragers and less discouragers.
Yeah, that's part of the Willie Lynch cycle, like they say. Separate the young from the old.
Yeah.
You know, somebody got to bridge the gap.
Yeah. And that's not just us. It works other places, too. I was watching something that was talking about North Korea and how they operate. They operate by making the state the parent, essentially. You know, your state becomes, the children get the snitching on the parent of who's doing what because the control gets out of your direct control. So hip-hop, we have to be parents, and we have to be uncles and aunts, and we have to be elders, and we have to give children the truth. You know, you can't shame them for bouncing and shaking, and you went to Freak Neat. You got to say, well, hey, I went to Freak Neat. And then this is so, let me tell you how not to get freaked out your neat. You know what I'm saying? we got to.
Right, and our parents listen to Teddy Pendergrass.
Oh, man, my mom loved Teddy, and our grandparents listen to worse music than that. I asked my granddad one time, I said, man, what you think about NWA niggas without to? He say, man, I ain't never old Stagger Lee. Them niggas ain't saying nothing new. And it helped me understand that nothing I'm going through is new. There's nothing new under the sun.
But what is it about us? It's like we have to compete for generational supremacy. My generation was better than yours. Because the more I get up in age, I hear my friends tell the youngsters things like, the music don't sound like it sounded back when I was. I hear we enter into more back in our day conversations.
Because that's what felt good to you. It felt good in your day, but you got to be honest about your day now. You weren't always right, you know.
Absolutely.
And I remember talking to George Clinton, interviewing him in my barbershop, my original barbershop. And he said, man, when I don't like something, I know usually I'm on to something. Because my grandkids will come along and tell me what they like about it. He said, I give it a second chance, and I listen with an unbiased ear.
That's
and
real.
You just got to get like that. You got to find commonality. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got to like it. You know what I mean? Like I said in an interview, I say, this album, my album, the best. I don't care if you super lyrical, empirical, or you mumble. Don't matter to me. I did the best this year. But I listen to everything. My kids, when I get with my kid, I have a 16-year-old daughter, I have a 25-year-old daughter, I sit with them like, what you listening to? What you got? Like the Sexy Red song. My 25-year-old daughter said, she said, Daddy, I'm going to play this. I don't want you to hear it, but I'm going to play. I said, let me hear it. When I heard it, I said, well, damn. I said, that's almost like the first time I let your grandmama hear throw that dick. And she was like, what? I said, yeah. I said, I was in the car with your grandmama. I said, I was playing Luke and the Two Line Crew, and I said, they had recorded, they sampled an old comedy record that your great grandmama listened to. And I said on there, the lady said, the guy said, I'm gonna slap you with 9 inches of lip. And my mama was smoking the joint and said, shit, I wanna see that. And it was so funny because in that moment, my mama was just a human being. She was only 16 years older than me. So it was like a big brother, a big sister, little brother relationship. So we already had a good relationship. But seeing my mama as a human being, it just made me giggle. And now my daughter's doing the same to me, and I gotta listen. And I'm just like, girl, your daddy grew up on Luke and the Two Line Crew. It ain't much you can let me hear to shock me. You know what I'm saying?
But let's kind of build on that, the importance of listening to the youth. I tell people all the time that if you have a conversation with a youngster and you talk 90% of the time and they listen 10% of the time, that wasn't a successful conversation.
Nah, probably not.
But if you got them to open up to you and they talk 90% of the time, and you listen 10%, the other 10% was you listening, then that was a successful conversation. Yeah. What's the importance of us listening to young people, listening to the youth?
Well, you want to know where their mind is at, and what you want to do instead of trying to tell them what to do, you just want to impart. You don't just impart wisdom by telling you. You impart wisdom by teaching kids to ask questions of they self and of the world.
Critical thinking.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you got to ask, the why, when, who, where, what. And once they mind get to turning like that, the results, because you've already put in them what you done put in them.
Right.
You just got to trust them to figure it out. Now, you do give them some safeguards. I don't want you dropping out of school. I don't want you to get pregnant if you can before you're married. I want you to keep a job, further education. You know what I mean? Those things are just standards. You have to do those things to matriculate into adulthood and to be successful. You know what I mean? But I can't tell you everything to do because I don't know your path. The world changes, nuances. But if I can teach you to think, if I can teach you to sit on the edge of the bed in the morning after you done did your prayers and meditate and think, what's my day going to be like today? What's successful? Then you're going to get some measure of success.
Yeah, what are the consequences of my actions?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're right, man.
Good and bad.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go back to the west side of Atlanta. I heard in one of your songs, you talked about how you were dropping your children off at the church daycare.
Yeah.
You were sitting inside the church, praying to God for purpose.
Yeah, that's how I remember dropping my babies off to church nervous. I remember sitting hurt all alone in the church service, asking God to reveal me a plan of higher purpose.
Yeah, higher purpose.
For real.
Right, because at the end of the day, I think that's what most of our young people and not so young people are looking for.
Yeah.
But I read a quote the other day on Instagram, and I said I'm gonna bring this up in the conversation. And it said that the hood never lacked talent.
No.
What the hood lacked was resources.
Yeah. And not only just lack resources, but how to use your resources.
Man,
we don't even all the time lack resources. You just don't know what to do with what you got because you're being told by everybody what to do. And again, it's like watching a toddler figure something out. You have people that are overdoting with children. Oh, don't let him, he gonna hurt himself. Let him fall. That's why they mostly made of water. God knew what he was doing. You know what I mean? So they gonna be all right. You gotta figure it out. When a child falls, sometimes you rush to help them. They cry, and that's teach them to get attention. Then they cry, get them more attention. But when you let them alone and let him figure it out, he'll be okay. Mostly fathers do. Stop. Let them figure it out. Then your daughter, you might go. But especially with boys, you have to let them and trust them to figure it out and encourage that thinking. You're not. A lot of times people say, I'm trying to raise a child. Absolutely. But what you're trying to do is raise that child into a thinking human being. Human being that can operate. As human beings, we're not born with claws. We don't have extremely long teeth. We don't have a lot of weapons. So the strongest thing that's in us has been our mind and our ability to operate as a team, as a tribe. You know what I mean? If we can just figure more of that out, the resources are there in some capacity. They didn't have proper food, so you figured out how to cook scraps, and now they charge you $50 for the scraps. I go to a restaurant, man. I love this restaurant. I ain't even gonna give people the name. I love it so much. It's me and my wife go in L.A. and I pay $50 for a bone marrow pie, and I laugh so hard because I'm like, my grandma used to make this pie for free. My grandma would go to the butcher, get scraps of beef from the cheeks to everything they didn't use. She'd get the actual bone, cook the bone marrow, and she'd tell you, eat the bone marrow, and now you come around, white folks telling you, well, now you're supposed to do this, it's better for, I was like, my grandma been told me that. Now they pay, you go to a resort, white folks charge you to take your shoes off and walk in the grass until you recharge it. My grandma made the summers just say, hey, man, take your shoes off and walk in the yard. They knew it already. So your resources a lot of times are there, but you don't respect it because you've been taught not to respect yourself. You know what I mean? But you think about it, man, I didn't see them get sick a lot. I got sick 2 days ago. I was sick as a dog. I just fasted. I just didn't eat for 2 days. First time I ate some chicken last night. I finally put some protein in my body. But I understood, like my grandmother, she would have us fast on Wednesdays when I was a child.
Really?
Yeah. Fast half-day Wednesdays. So she would fast, and my grandfather fasted. But they just taught us so much of what my great-grandparents, my grandparents taught us, I'm realizing was the absolute truth. But then nobody believed it till it was on a book in Oprah. Oprah have the book of Dr. Oz or something. Yeah. But I go back, man, I listen to even old Reverend Ike sermons. When you hear Reverend Ike talk about something divine is in you,
yes, sir,
and you can manifest the things you want. Everybody act like manifest a new word. Reverend Ike was slick, man. He was talking about manifesting in the late 70s, early 80s. So, I'm just saying in our community, we even have the resources, but you got to believe they're worthy.
Yeah, I was about to say, what do you think are our greatest resources for those who don't have quote unquote resources?
Yeah, I think first of all, you are your greatest resource. You know, a lot of men make no mistake making your self-determination, your will to win, your want to figure it out. You know, again, intermittent fasting is the biggest thing in the world now. Oh man, we only eat once a day. Noor Muhammad been telling you that the last 5 years. Elijah Muhammad been telling you that the last 70 years.
Right.
Ms. Farrakhan been telling you that the last 50 years. But you didn't believe it until a cock-strong white boy got on there and told you that, which is still good for you. But just saying, man, believe your people. Give it a try. Look at them. You know, when you see the FO out there in a suit, they ain't sweating. You like, man, whatever they doing, I need to do. You know what I'm saying? It's working for them. Maybe I should try it too. So the first and best resource you have is that mind and that will to learn. You know, I heard, man, I remember disagreeing vehemently, man, with Dr. Bill Cosby when he went, you know, prior to all the, you know, the things that the allegations that came, but when he was just talking about black people failing ourselves with not valuing education, things of that nature. So he came and spoke at my high school. I wasn't in school at the time, but I went to the high school just to hear him speak, and I was ready to disagree with him. Jump up, you know, talk my talk on the behalf of black young folks and rappers. And man, he said something. He said, hey, you have failed because you have free education and you're not taking advantage of it. Now, I know the school system is not perfect, but when it comes to reading, writing, and arithmetic, if you can read well, you can write well, and you can figure out arithmetic, there are very few things that can stop you from matriculating into something greater. Because they always gonna need good readers, they always need a good writer, and if you know arithmetic, you know everything from coding to algebra. And I realized that part of our culture's failure was that we stopped valuing the resource of education in the way. I don't have to care about your history. I know your history a lot, right? I know where I am in your history, so I put that truth in there. But the basic cornerstones of, can our children read? Can our children write well? Can our children master mathematics? If they can do that, they can be competitive. And once you start to be competitive as an individual, you can team up with other people that are competitive. Then you become a competitive group. When you take Asian Americans, for instance, my daughter now goes to a school that's more diverse. She went all the way through middle school, just all black. When it came time for her to go to high school, her mother and I talked and said, well, we're gonna see about some other stuff, because her cousins at the all black schools, a great school, but I'm just like, when them cousins get together, all kind of thugging happen too, you know? So we put her at another school, and what she learned and what I've learned is the Asian kids who typically score higher, they study in groups. Gotta think about that. And individually, she a dog about her studying. She that Spanish grade was low. She got it up to 87 by herself. But she has a circle of friends where they all are smart. And when they study together, it's even more powerful.
I agree.
And we have to start to emulate that. Elijah Muhammad says, study other people that are successful. Study groups of people that are successful. We have to do that. And we have to return the things that we did. My great-grandmother's mother, my great-grandmother actually taught her mother and her children to read. So everybody, as a group, they're learning together. And there's an encouragement factor, because once children become confident and they become competent, ain't no competition. You know, it ain't nothing stopping them, because the only thing you compete with then is in the mirror.
So we need to make education and knowledge of self a group effort.
Black folks should stop complaining about what the public school system would do, should do, or could do, and focus on the things that the public education school can do right. You can teach me 2 + 2 is 4. You can teach me proper grammar and punctuation skills, right? You can teach me the very basics of that. Take that, and then on Saturdays we should be having our own school.
Saturday school.
You know, just like other cultures have. You know, my Jewish friends went to regular school, and then on Saturday they had to go, like, for others. I'm saying, what you going? Well, we learn about a Torah, we learn Hebrew. At the back, I remember I went to the synagogue with my accountant. At the back of the synagogue was all these cards with the businesses. So if they're gonna look to do business, they look to do business with one another first. And I'm just like, oh, okay. When I went to a Presbyterian church, you know, all denominations in that church, but the Presbyterians focused on having their own school in terms of how do we teach Christianity from a Presbyterian standpoint, who are the Presbyterian carpenters, who are the Presbyterian plumbers. And I'm just like, okay, so black people, really that's all we need to do. We need to focus on what is our Saturday school and our after school. What 2 hours are we gonna give on a Saturday? Like all of us, Swahili is the most common spoken language, I think, in Africa. The brothers in jail already put it together. They already started speaking Swahili so they could get around the guards talking. So those brothers are resources. As those brothers get out, why are those brothers not the ones teaching the young brothers Swahili? You know, we should already know how to say hello. We should already know words to be able to speak in a room full of people, because other people do it. Other groups of people can speak in a room full of people. And now you go get your nails done, and you don't know what the hell they're saying. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But you know at the end of it, $125. Right. They want $125. Right. They say that better than they said anything. They say the whole time. So I think that we have to do that. We have to understand everything does not have to be public. Everything does not have to be validated by other people. Some things are best kept private. Every conversation is not meant for everybody.
Agreed.
You know, my grandfather used to tell me, man, stay out of white folks' business. And I never knew what that meant. But what it meant was mind your own business. Tend to your own house. Tend to your own crops. And that way, your community will be what you want it to be versus you looking at other communities saying, why? You know?
We'd be less concerned about whether or not they're going to teach that black people benefited from slavery. Because we know on Saturdays, we're teaching the truth to our youngsters.
Absolutely. And I got some opinions on that I won't even talk about. I just said some stuff best unsaid.
Okay,
so,
if you say so.
Yeah, so I mean it is. Because until you really learn what it was for real, you're not going to hear the news. Like, one of the best things that happened to me and members of my crew was when the doctor said, hey, man, you pre-diabetic, you better get it together now. Well, that gives you another discipline. You say, okay, I got to go read How to Eat to Live again. I got to focus on eating like this. I got to have a certain discipline. So diabetes ravages us, right? But hearing that news to me and members of my crew made us transform the way we move. I done lost a little weight. So, you know, I'm not saying slavery was good or beneficial. I'm saying, boy, if I'm the only person know how to pick cotton and we just got free, oh, you have to pay me to pick some cotton now, baby. Yeah, they ain't free no more. Yeah, I'm not your slave no more. Now we in a free market. Now we exist in a capitalist system.
That go back to using your resources.
Now it's not. And for people who don't know this, it's important you do know this. Because I used to wonder when I was a kid, how does one buy one's family out of slavery? If I'm a slave, I'm not getting paid. But every farmer, you have a master class in the South. Those were the rich people who owned damn near everything. They still do to this day. Crawford Long was the guy who invented an anesthesia to put people to sleep to essentially in the Civil War, cut their limbs and stuff off, right? He owns part of my father's family. This ain't no myth or no hypothesis. We were owned by his family. I'm of that lineage, right?
In Georgia?
Yep, in Georgia. Crawford Long. Named a hospital for him. He sits in the state capitol now. They asked me to come to the family reunion. I said, no, I'm okay, thank you. But this man, having owned human beings, at some point, somebody on there was smart enough to start another leg of this family, had this black family. They would use their resources to buy their own land. So my great-grandfather had a farm. My great-grandfather didn't have to be dependent on anybody. His children didn't. There were things that he took from that was a horrible experience, but it enriched him in a way that allowed him to be a better man. There was things that Moses learned in the house of Pharaoh that the Israelites needed when they were wandering through that wilderness for 40 years. And even though he couldn't go into the promised land, he made sure Aaron knew, hey, these are the things you need to know and not know. So when you get to the promised land, this is how we should be operating. So you have to find, even in your suffering, a purpose. God has not allowed you to suffer for nothing. So I used to wonder to say, so how did the slave buy themselves out of slavery? Well, since everybody wasn't rich, you had poor white farmers who could not afford to own a slave. On Sundays, slaves had the day off. People who weren't slaves. They went to whoever owned them and said, look, I got Sundays off. I ain't really in the church and singing. So my wife is going to go to church and sing. I would like to lease myself out to this other farm, and then we'll do a 60-40 split or 50-50 split. And that's when a teacher, Miss Baraki, who was under Dr. Asa Hilliard's curriculum out of Clark, when Miss Baraki helped me understand that slaves weren't just mindless animals being used. They used their mind. They used their ingenuity. They rented themselves out, kept the money, split the money, and then after a certain tax was paid, now I've bought my wife out. Now, my wife will go rent herself out to sew. It's a seamstress in town. I've learned how to sew. It's all I've been doing since I was 5 years old. My skills are valuable to this white woman who needs, so now I go sew. Now you have people that said, even though this horrible thing has happened to us, the skills that I've got from here on a free market on Sundays matter, and they were able to do that. But if we don't give our children the whole truth, they start to think, man, we was just lowly animals, and that's all we'll ever be, and that's not the truth. They start to think to themselves, man, the skills I have of barbering or carpentry or electrician, it ain't enough because I didn't go to college. But that's not true. I don't care how much college you have. I got an uncle who's autistic. He can't count $100, but he can build his whole shop. I can count $100. I can't put a hammer and nail to save my life. So who you think gonna be most valuable in the market when they got to rebuild the infrastructure?
Right.
You know, so we have to start to see even the worst of suffering has some blessing in it for us. So again, I'm not defending and saying slavery was beneficial in terms of everything was hunky-dory. But even in the midst of slavery, we figured out a way to prevail.
You can make anything beneficial
We figured out a way to prevail, man. Think about that. We haven't been free 60 years of apartheid. My parents were born in apartheid. 1955 and 1959. Jim Crow was still raging. Apartheid. We couldn't even walk in every door, you know what I mean? But you look at it, look at their son. Their son's a multimillionaire now. Their great-grandchildren will never want if they apply themselves. You understand what I'm saying? That is something to celebrate. So I'm not, I'm never jumping on the side to say, oh, it was good for us. I saw a white boy on TV, he thought it was smart. He said, America was built by white folks and yada, yada, yada. And I thought to myself, you might have laid out, and I'll give you Benjamin Banneker as a perfect example. Mm-hmm. Whoever the person was that was designing Washington, D.C., I think it might have been a Frenchman or something, he got pissed off with other white folks in America. He left. If Benjamin Banneker had not had a photographic memory to say, well, these were the plans he laid out, you wouldn't have Washington, D.C. as you have it today. Because he was a lowly assistant and he remembered, he was the person able to do that. When they burnt the White House down, who were the people that rebuilt it? So when you hear somebody say, y'all didn't build America, I don't even argue with them. Because I own a business, so you can't argue with me. If you give me a choice between free labor and market rate, I'm going to take free labor all day. So you can't tell me we didn't build America because I don't care who had drafted up the plans, who put hammer to nail.
Who did the work?
Cotton was one of the most valuable resources in the world. If that cotton didn't get picked by these black hands, and those black hands that were up north working in textiles and industry, if they didn't thread that cotton and make it to something to be sold, what would this country have been? Slavery gave this country a 250-year head start economically. If Haiti wouldn't have sent the French back packing, America never would have had Louisiana, never would have had Texas, or anything worse to that. Because they kicked the French's ass in such a bad way, they had to leave, and economically, they couldn't fight the ex-Brits that were over here anymore for this land. So the reason you even have America, and Frederick Douglass talked about this, the only reason you have it is because a bunch of Haitians kicked a bunch of French folks' ass. And we don't even know the proper arguments because we've only accepted the fact that we was just lowly slaves. But if you see yourself as just a lowly slave and not the most important cog in the machine, you'll forever have low self-confidence. But if everybody said, man, we ain't picking no cotton got picked, how would the South have gotten rich? Alexander Stephens said, who was the vice president, there's a Stephens County named for him in Georgia. Vice president of the Confederacy said, the cornerstone of the Confederacy is slavery. And it wasn't just we want to keep people as pets.
It was the economic engine.
My brother. It's that simple. So I don't even listen to white folks say, well, you didn't build this country. Shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. The vice president said it right there. It's just the cornerstone. The cornerstone is the most important piece that's in building the building. So you just have to smile and accept that we suffered through it. But you have to move with the confidence to know you're competent to do it for yourself. There was another Confederate official who was about to lose his land. Because when the Union came down, they said, we confiscating all this shit. If you're a white man, you own it, we taking it. One of his enslaved men saying, hey, sign it over to me. I'll own it. When they come back, when they leave, I'll sign it over to you. Now, I'm sure he kept some land for himself, but his master wasn't even smart enough to broker that deal. Mm-hmm. We got a brother, I forget his name. His name was Biggs. I think Robert Biggs was in South Carolina, stole a Confederate ship, got the Confederate ship up to the Union Army, flashed and let it know over to him. They ought to have somebody said they ought to have a movie about him. But they don't want you to hear that because they don't want you to think, oh man, you was just lowly. And I don't mean just the people who oppressed you. It's some people that benefit from your oppression that look like you. They say you're your friend, but they got them 501c3s, boy. They can't get no donations. They can't live as high as so they need you to think you only vibrated low. Man, you've been outsmarting oppression your whole way here. You've been resisting your whole way here. Mm-hmm. The whole 400-500 years you've been here, you've been pushing back. You've been figuring it out. And you're going to keep doing that. And that's the confidence you have to have. What happened to us was wrong. The way they do us now is wrong. But boy, when your mind is right and you move righteous, it's amazing what you're able to do. Look what Marcus Garvey was able to do. You know, I don't care what you think about. I tell people I don't argue between Abrahamic religion. I don't argue Jewish, Muslim, or Christian because they all had the same father in Abraham. So that's family fights, and I don't get in the middle of family fights. What I say, though, is you show me another organization that takes men that have thought less of themselves, that have been on the bottom, women that have been used, that have been abused, that are coming out of prison, coming out of doldrums of addiction. You show me another organization that gives you fine, upstanding citizens like that, then I say, man, I might be wrong, but I know I'm not wrong. Because I knew my brother before he got in the nation. Yes, and I know him now. I know his wife and his children. I see the business he set for himself. So anything and everything is possible when you believe. Their job is to get you to disbelieve. And I'm not just talking about your clear and open enemy. Yeah. Some people profit from your disbelief. And as long as you let them profit from your disbelief by not believing in yourself, then it continues. Everybody sees a rise in homelessness now. I say, man, why do we see such a rise in homelessness? Like, this is crazy. Because it's not just your city. It's in every city. All I do is travel around the world, singing and dancing. But I'm like, but now they're saying they got monies coming in. And they say, well, if we solve the homeless crisis, no money keeps coming. Well, if no money keeps coming, how do I keep my job as special advisor to homelessness committee? Right. You know, when you look at gang violence in Los Angeles, many of the brothers that started 501c3s that were former gang members that are effective at ending the violence, they say, well, Michael, when the violence drops too low, then they drop the police budgets to combat violence. Right. So then they take our money, and then violence rises up again, and then the policemen get more money, the police forces get more, and then they double back around us and say, well, we got some more money for it. Well, that's a wicked system because it requires violence for the state to get more money and for the people who are really trying to solve the problem. At some point, if the brothers just say, we're not doing it. Yeah. We're not going to kill each other.
Because if you solve the problem, then you can't get funding for the solution.
Absolutely.
Let's give Billy a killer Mike. Okay, so I know you saw the fight this weekend.
Nah, I was on stage, man. But I saw clips, man. It was woo.
Yeah, it was a rough one.
Yeah.
Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr.
Yeah.
The one side of the fair. I'm a huge Errol Spence fan.
Yeah.
Was then, still am now. Yeah. Right? But shout out to Terence Crawford. I wanted Errol Spence to win, but I didn't want Terence Crawford to lose.
Yeah.
But the point I wanted to make is, I like the way both of these brothers held a very, very high level production, but it never got disrespectful.
No, class.
You understand what I'm saying? It was very classy. And they both made, I think, like 8 figures. They both fed their families. And it may not have been the outcome that some of us wanted.
Yeah.
What is the importance of us as black people being able to compete and collaborate at the same time without attacking one another?
We got to get rid of ego and insecurity. One thing I want to mention, I think I saw Spence had bought like 65 acres of land.
Yeah.
And he said, I never grew up around horses and cattle and all that. He did that, and he said he was buying like 200 more. That was just a beautiful thing. Yeah. And seeing how Crawford and he enacted afterwards was just class. Like, you know, everything about our culture has not been bad. Even if you look at gang culture, some things I learned when the brothers say, man, well, we just gonna run a fade. You know, we've been talking about each other too long. Let's just go behind that. Nobody turn their phones off. Right. We're gonna get it off of that. On the other side, we're gonna wipe the blood off. We're gonna hug, and we did that. You know what I mean? And I respect that because at the end of the day, we men. You know, and at the end of the day, we're men and women, and we're gonna have differences. But it's important again that if we doing it on television as a sport in front of people, that no matter how competitive we get, no matter how much shit talk we give each other, when we get off that field, we still black people. We still gotta love one another. We still gotta speak highly and respectfully of one another. You know what I mean? And I learned that lesson when I watched Ali and Frazier. You know, Ali later just said, you know, he understood some of the things he said was too mean. He didn't understand he was really poking his brother. And Frazier, eventually, they reconciled. And that was a beautiful thing. But we got to seek reconciliation with each other. I forget which holiday it's named for, but again, I got one of my Jewish friends told me about, they have, I think maybe Yom Kippur. I think it's Yom Kippur, where they get together and you get the chance to ask once a year to be forgiven. Right. Look, man, look, man, I know I did you wrong. And the person has the right to forgive or not forgive, but you come back next year like, hey, I know I was wrong. You know what I mean? And just because you forgive somebody don't mean you have to be buddy, don't mean you have to hang out. But you do have to let that burden off yourself. You know, because if you carry that burden, man, it'll carry you into cancer, it'll carry you into disease, it'll carry you into mental illness, it'll carry you into a lot of stuff that you don't deserve to be carried into, because what you're doing is you holding a burden that ain't meant for you to hold. You know, ultimately God is the judge, you not. So you don't have, you should try to carry that load. It's not meant for you. So I think that the way those brothers handled themselves was a class act. I think that, you know, I love what Deion Sanders and Andre Rison talked about when they played each other when Deion first left, and they got fighting on the field really quickly. And Deion said, we just had to get it out. And after that, and man, he's such a class act. I'm so glad Coach has been a friend and mentor to me the last couple of years. You know what I mean?
Deion Sanders?
Yeah, I've learned so much from him. You know, he called me. I was in the mall, and he called like twice. Like, Coach called me. He said, I'm just calling to see how you doing. He said, yeah, it's me. I'm just like, God damn, it's Deion. But he's such an open and transparent person in terms of his downfalls, his shortcomings, his thinking, his triumphs. That as a man, I've learned a lot by watching him. So seeing him talk about him and Rising and how they were super competitive, but in that moment after they got it out, it's over. And brothers gonna have to start being like that, you know, because you know you can't apologize to your brother once he dead. So why kill him?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I wanted to ask while you're on that point, because I've been wanting to ask that. A little while ago, you mentioned every conversation is not for the public.
No.
You know, we talk about that often.
Yeah.
We try to make sure we stay in communication, you know, with others. And I wanted you, Mike, to touch on why the barbershop, you know, is important to you, what that significance is, because while we're here, it was not, you know, just a place to pick. Why we own a barbershop? What is the significance of conversations in the barbershop? How those private conversations, you know, bring collaboration and more togetherness in our community.
Yeah, so you know, there's. I grew up in an all black city, so all, you know, it was majority black city, but my neighborhood was all black. And all black meaning everybody from working class black people like my grandparents were there in a little 900 square foot house raising all these children, to the richest black developer in America at one time, Herman Russell, you know, and Dr. King's parents had lived there, and Cynthia McKinney and her father Billy McKinney, U.S. representatives. So all these people are here. There were just certain conversations just wasn't meant for outside their neighborhood.
Right.
Those conversations happen right there in the living room. And past the living room, they happen in the barbershops. In the barbershops, our hair is our hair. You know, you can go to white folk restaurant and eat, you know. You can go to other folk places and play tennis, play golf. But when we black folk mess with our hair, we don't trust everybody with our hair. You know what I mean? So when you in the barbershop, you seeing a plethora of people from different class in our community, but they all together.
Good point.
And they get a chance to discuss things, and it's a safe space.
Yeah.
Your barber is damn near like a therapist in the problems they hear going on and the advice they give. But more than that, they like gatekeepers to what the community is really thinking. You know, when it was time to win the election for Kasim Reed, for Keisha Lance Bottoms, even for Andre Dickens, first place I'm going to the barbershop. Let me go to barbershops and beauty shops. Let me go to where people are already talking because they know it's safe to talk in there. You'll hear a radically different conversation in the barbershop than you'll hear the nail shop, because the nail shop ain't owned by you.
Right.
So you gonna watch kind of what you say.
Right,
you're in the barbershop, you free, and you know people not taking your business outside in that capacity. So for me, owning barbershops, I understand that, you know, we're not great clips. We're not super cuts. You know, we're not, and we're building a chain. You know, my wife and I with the swag shop, Shade Washing Room Shop. So we have them on the south side near the airport. We have one in State Farm Arena in Atlanta. Yeah. We just got funding to expand to 3 more. But I realize that our barbershops are a social center.
Yeah.
They're not just a place you go get a haircut. It isn't just the accommodation of getting beautified. It really is, on a social level, it's a golf club. On a social level, it's after you've played a few rounds of tennis, because that's where your deals get done. When you think about local politics, your local politics does not get done under the Gold Dome. Your local politics gets done in fraternity meetings, social clubs like tennis and golf. You know, you always wonder why people want to learn how to play golf. Well, that's what people decide they like you. People who got the money to invest in you. You know what I'm saying? Brad Jordan was years ahead of all the rappers in playing golf. He understood this before the comedians, before the athletes started playing golf, before Michael Jordan. I heard Scarface talk about golf, like golf. But golf makes sense once you start getting around money. When I ask people, what sport do you think most bankers and stuff played in college? It's lacrosse. I never gave a damn about lacrosse. But when you think about it, the people who could play basketball, football, but who still wanted to be active, they gonna hang in a circle. They're gonna click. So I think our barbershop is our exclusive place to discuss business, to discuss politics, to discuss where we want to go. That's why I value owning a series of shops. Owning the franchise of shops. That's why I value coming. I go to other barbershops and not mine, still to this day. I just pop up because I want to know what's going on in the community I'm in. I want to know who are the people, what's happening there, and you're going to get honest answers there.
Yeah, you can put your hand on the pulse of the community
Absolutely.
in the barbershop.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So at the end of the day, Mike, like I remember the first time you and I, the first time I was in the same room with you was back in the 2000s. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had come to Atlanta and he called together a meeting.
My man Bear brought me. He's here with me today.
With all of the artists, yeah. And I remember you got up and you spoke that day.
Yes, sir. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, the things that came out of your mouth that day really set the tone for that entire weekend. Yeah. And I remember Minister Farrakhan looking at you and he put his hand on his heart. He said, "This is a beautiful brother."
Absolutely.
Where does that relatable spirituality come from? And I call it relatable spirituality because it's not necessarily religious.
He loved black people. You know, I don't argue between the Abrahamic religion. I'm not gonna get in no family arguments. All y'all are here because of Abraham. Y'all should figure that out, right?
Yes, sir.
My thing though is, man, black people are. Dr. John Henry Clark said that Africans have no friends. Everybody who's ever aligned themselves with us at the time that the advantage was for them betrayed us. You know, and I'm not harping on everybody. I'm just saying when you look at throughout history, look at Frederick Douglass said, something is of no color, something is of no sex. Go look the quote up. What he was basically saying at the time was give men and women the right to vote right now at the same time. They didn't do that. They gave black men the right to vote. And at that time, you saw the abolitionist movement separate from the women's suffrage movement. At that time, when black men were going to vote in South Carolina and black women were standing outside with shotguns and rifles to protect them from the Ku Klux Klan, white women were so offended that black men got the opportunity to vote first, that the women's suffrage movement separated from the abolitionist movement, and next thing you know, the Daughters of Confederacy pop up. And the Daughters of Confederacy pop up, then you see Confederate monuments, then you see different teaching in school. So your ally was not your friend. Your ally was not your co-conspirator. My measure for a co-conspirator and a friend is John Brown. If you ain't willing to John Brown it with me, meaning take life and put your life on the line and be willing to die, you just an ally. And allies change after wars. Russia and America was allies. They got a
John Brown in with you, Mike?
If you got the John Brown, and otherwise I'll take an ally, but understand that after the war, we might have to do Russia and the United States because that's all I've seen. You know, Germany was kicking everybody's ass. Russia and the United States didn't even like each other. Say, we got to figure this shit out now. This Hitler he gonna take it all if we don't. So they had to ally, but the minute the war was over, they just chopped up the world. They said, this man, but we not friends no more. So we have to understand that your ally is not forever. You know what I mean? And that don't mean that I don't like anybody. That don't mean that I can't be friends, which I encourage people to befriend people who don't look like you, who not ethnically like you, so you can find ways to intersect the cross pattern. But you have to understand that it is your duty to take care of you, yourself, your family, and your greater community.
At the end of the day, we all we got.
We all we got. We all we gonna have. We've all we've ever had. The original man and woman. That's it. You know, that's it. No matter what you call yourself. You can call yourself Muslim. You can call yourself Hebrew.
Right.
You can call yourself a Moor.
Right.
You can say you indigenous. Whatever you call yourself.
Right.
And they probably going to call you nigga when you leave the room.
Right.
But whatever you call yourself, understand that it's just you.
Yes, sir.
So move as a unit. Move like that. I was listening to a African brother, and he was saying, you know, that the differences between African Americans and Africans that sometimes he was saying that because we were brought here and robbed of our true identity, that we didn't know, and that's not all the way true too. Many of the brothers, I was reading about a slave that was brought here, an enslaved man that was brought here that was a Muslim. You know, so when it argues who brought Islam, was it Noble Drew Ali, was it Master Fard Muhammad, was it, this brother was 200 years before any of them. He never stopped practicing Islam, right? But what I realized is maybe we got here because we leaned too much into tribalism. Maybe we got here because we start seeing ourselves as I'm Igbo, I'm Yoruba.
That's a good point.
And we have to understand that ultimately being robbed of our history was a wrong. But if I had to find any blessed in it, I don't differentiate between the original man and woman. Because one thing I do know, before I named myself as a part of a tribe, before I gave my God a different name or decided to worship an Orisha, what I do know is that God put us here first. The first human being. The matriarchal DNA, I'm getting the word, I'm saying it wrong, DNA is of a black woman in Eastern Africa. So my thing is, if I already know, I told people all the time, y'all be arguing about who they are online. I said, Elijah Muhammad already solved that problem for me. You're the original man and woman. Right. That's it. Whatever God put here first, that's you. And that's how I move. So no matter what you call yourself,
planet Earth.
No matter what you call yourself, I recognize that God put you here first. And we are of the same bloodline. And I respect that. So however you work, if you worship on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I can come to your worship. I can be home there. I can pray with you.
Brothers and sisters.
We brothers and sisters. We here first. You know, and if we start to reinterpret our thinking, you know, maybe we can come together again and understand no matter what makes me feel good about myself. You know, in terms of what you name yourself, what chapter you belong to, what fraternity or sorority, no matter how I feel, God saw fit to make us first. And if I'm made in God's image, how can I treat you like you anything but God?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Earlier in the conversation, you mentioned Mutulu Shakur.
Absolutely.
May Allah be pleased with Brother Mutulu Shakur, who, for those who did not know, was a political prisoner. I want to say he did 36 years in prison. Correct me if I'm wrong. Assata Shakur, still in Cuba. Kicked out of America.
I hope they don't never get him. Never home.
Exactly. What do you think is the culture's responsibility to the political prisoners who are still incarcerated to this day?
I was talking to a wise sister who started, $1 billion business, in black woman. And she said, she gave me a challenge in my lifetime. I got to figure this out. 40 million black people in this country. I figure 20 million of them are above the poverty line. If you give me 10%, that's 2 million. Give me 5%. Give me 1 million black people. Give me $2.50 a week. Give me $10 a month. Give me that 1 million. Give me that. That's what, roughly 10 million.
If
you can give me 100, we'll make 100 million a month. We should have a fund that takes care of our own. We should take care of our old. We should take care and build our own schools. And then it's just $10. It's just what you waste on fast food, on alcohol, marijuana. I got $10 of marijuana money to give every month. But if 1 million of us do it, just 1 million, 1 million out of 40, you will have $120 million a year of a slush fund to take care of not only political prisoners, but all freedom fighters who got released. You'd have that to take care of schooling in terms of your Saturday schools. If we do that, if we just have the discipline, 1 million of us, if we have the discipline to give $10 a month, that is $120 million a year. And what can't you do with that?
Right, man. Beautiful answer. What do you hope? What are your highest hopes for the accomplishment of this album, Michael?
Man, I want to do like, in terms of personal, just, selfishly, I'm still a rapper. I want all the attention and the fame and the money, all that old rapper stuff, right?
Man, we want that for you, brother.
I feel like this is a miseducation of Lauryn Hill moment. What that album was for black women, and I saw my sisters just glow. I got 5 sisters. I saw my baby mamas just glow. I saw black women glowing. I think that this record does that for black and working class men.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, and I want to lead the Grammys with an arm full of trophies too. And I want to drop another one and another one. And I want to use my platform to empower people who organize it. on a daily basis, like Tez, like Georgia Youth Build in Georgia, like Gary Davis at the Next Level Boys Academy. That's it. I wanted to smoke weed, rap, go to the Blue Flag. That was my plan. God just had other plans.
Right.
He messed around. I got educated. I got illuminated on certain things. So I understand that with getting what you want from God comes with some responsibilities too.
Yeah.
And my responsibility to my community is to uplift, to be a walking example of upliftment, and try my very best to uplift others by empowering the people who do the work. Mm-hmm. See, I used to be an organizer. Every week, my mind was on organizing. Now, because I got the job I wanted, God gave me the blessing of going around the globe singing and dancing, I realize I am a mobilizer. Mm-hmm. It's my job now that when an organizer calls it, this is what I'm organizing, to show up to mobilize people to come to hear.
You help to pull the parts together.
Yeah, absolutely. You come, you just serve as a caller. Hey, I'm here today. That's what later in the SCLC's existence, not later, but in the later 60s, what you got was SNCC doing the organizing. You got John Lewis, Stokely Carmichael at the time, and Kwame Ture. You had them young students, fiery, in Alabama and in Georgia, South Georgia, getting people out there. And what Dr. King did when he showed up, he brought the crowd, the mobilizers. So, for me, I've understood that what I want selfishly, I want to march in the Grammys, I want to walk out. I want to go from playing 3,000 people theaters to 12, 15, 30,000 people in arenas. I want that and more. But I don't want my life to have only been about that. I would have liked to have affected greater change before I get out of here. I would have liked to have led people to a spirituality in which they see something divine in themselves, and that's people across all race and color and code. I played Charleston, South Carolina. A white boy came up to me, man. It was amazing. He had on his Braves cap. He said, "Mike, I'm just a poor white boy from the Appalachian." And I identify with every single word of that album. Because the worker class, no matter the color, you suffer under the same masters. And they brutal. The same people that named us nigga named crackers. It wasn't just because they whipped crackers. It was a lower standard of white people that they saw that was not beneficial to them. And they decided that they're going to annex them out too. And then when they got too friendly with us, they said, hold on. This club called white folks, we're going to open the doors, we're going to let you in, but you can't go singing and dancing with niggas no more. That happened to the Irish. That happened to the Italians. They did it to Jewish people too. They annexed all those white people out, but as power consolidated in this country, they needed to identify where power would stay. Listen to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing when she talks about it. People, you got to really study and prove yourself worthy. I said, it was funny, I was talking to Clip doing an interview in Chicago, and I named all these things. I named Henry Osa Watana. I named Of Muse and Men by Zora Neale Hurston. I named some other writers and stuff. And then I say, man, I'm just a guy sitting in front and stole some dope in his pocket. And a lot of times we don't understand how much knowledge is around us and talk about resources because we see them as junkies and addicts. But man, they people who the revolution, they done fought it all they could, and they done got so hurt and deeply cut that they didn't have the power to keep moving on, and they're using things to pacify themselves. But you got to know that knowledge is everywhere. I don't want a man that's never been broken to tell me how to repair myself. I need a man that's had to repair himself. And while we doing that, we got to make sure we build strong children. Like Frederick Douglass said, it's easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men.
Yes, sir.
So the broken men that are repaired, they should be teaching those children to be strong.
Each one teach one.
You did the album, you did a record on junkies. Just kind of
it's called
just a little bit.
Yeah, it's called Something for Junkies. And just because, like Curtis Mayfield did Freddy's Dead for Superfly, junkies are people who have addictions are not respected and actually detested in our community. But why? We all have some addictions. Right. We all have been, usually the people I've encountered that are addicts are deeply sensitive people, very loving people, but the world is so that they don't always have what it takes to fight it, and they succumb to that because it numbs them. But I think in the black community, the biggest mistake we made was we became slave masters. We know that car costs $30 a wash at a proper car wash, and we'll rather pay that man $15, Well, I mean, now that I'm 15, we'd rather pay them 5 or 10 because we can get away
Like you
with
say,
it.
pay your people a decent wage.
Man, what I say, man, to my J's working hard to get paid, pay them fair wage and do not treat your people like
go
slaves.
listen to Michael, y'all.
Yeah.
Go listen to Michael.
All this is in there.
Yeah, so much knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and just great music.
Yeah.
We talked about resources in the black community.
Yeah.
I want to say to you, brother, in my humble opinion, you're a great resource.
I appreciate
to
you so
our
much.
culture, brother. Thank you so much for coming by.
I appreciate you.
Shout out to Willie D.
Shouts out to Willie D.
Live.
OG
Our
called
brother,
me.
he couldn't be here today.
Yeah.
Right. I hope I did a good job, dear brother.
Praise him.
Any parting words, dear brother?
Bet you can, you will, you must. You can, you will, you must.
And that's our conversation. Our dear brother,
Man, love and respect.
Killer Mike.
Yes, sir.
Great.
That's a wrap.
All right, thank you.
Thank y'all so much.